What if the person you loved the most was taken from you not by choice, but by fate, and years later, you finally stand face to face again? Ian Murray's story, in Outlander, is not just about survival or loyalty. It's about a love that was deep, real, and painfully unfinished. Long before he returned to Fraser's Ridge, Ian lived a completely different life among the Mohawk. There, he wasn't just an outsider trying to belong, he became one of them. And in that new life, he found Emily. She wasn't just someone he cared about. She became his home, his peace, his future. Their bond grew slowly, built on trust, shared pain, and quiet understanding. Even though they came from different worlds, their hearts met in a way that felt natural and strong. Over time, they married, not just in ceremony, but in spirit. Ian gave himself fully to that life, and to Emily. For the first time, he wasn't living in someone else's shadow. He was building something of his own. But love in Ian's life was never simple. Beneath their happiness, there was a growing weight that neither of them could escape. Emily became pregnant, and with that came hope for a family, for a future that would tie them even closer together. But that hope didn't last. The loss of their child broke something inside both of them. It wasn't just grief, it was silence, distance, and a pain that words couldn't fix. In Emily's culture, this loss carried meaning, and Ian, despite all his efforts to belong, could not fully understand it the way she did. The space between them began to grow, slowly at first, then all at once. Love was still there, but it was no longer enough to hold them together. Ian faced a choice that no one should ever have to make: stay and continue a life that was falling apart, or leave and carry that pain with him forever. He chose to leave, but not because he stopped loving Emily. In fact, that was the very reason he couldn't stay. Every moment with her became a reminder of what they had lost. Every look carried both love and heartbreak at the same time. Leaving wasn't an escape, it was a sacrifice. He walked away from the one person who made him feel whole, knowing he might never see her again. When Ian returned to his family, he wasn't the same young man who had once been full of curiosity and fire. He carried something heavier now: memories he couldn't share, and a love he couldn't replace. Even when he smiled, there was something missing. A quiet sadness stayed with him, hidden beneath his strength, because no matter how far he traveled, a part of him never left Emily behind. Ian tried to move forward, but the past has a quiet way of following you, no matter how far you run. Back at Fraser's Ridge, life slowly returned to a sense of normal. There were people who loved him, a place that welcomed him, and a family that never stopped caring. On the surface, Ian began to fit back into the life he once knew. He worked, he fought, he laughed when others laughed. But inside, something never settled. It was as if a part of him was still somewhere else, still standing in the forests of the Mohawk village, still hearing Emily's voice in the quiet moments between breaths. Time passed, but time didn't heal him the way others expected. Instead, it changed how his pain lived inside him. It became quieter, less visible, but never gone. There were nights when sleep didn't come easily, when memories returned without warning. Small things would bring it all back: a certain sound, a familiar silence, even the way the wind moved through the trees. And in those moments, Ian wasn't in Fraser's Ridge anymore. He was back with Emily, reliving everything he lost. He never spoke much about her, not because he forgot, but because remembering hurt too deeply to put into words. The people around him saw his strength, his loyalty, his courage, but they didn't see the part of him that still held on to a life he could never return to. Ian had always been open-hearted, but now he guarded that part of himself more than anything else. Because once you've lost something that important, you don't risk losing it again, even if it only exists in memory. What made it harder was the question that never left him. What if things had been different? What if he had understood more? What if he had stayed? What if he had fought harder for them? These thoughts didn't come all at once. They came slowly, over time, building a quiet storm inside him. And no matter how strong he tried to be, doubt has a way of breaking even the strongest hearts. But life doesn't stop moving, even when you feel stuck. Ian continued to stand beside his family, to protect them, to play his role in a world that kept changing around him. He became someone others could depend on. Yet deep down, he often felt like a man living two lives: one in the present, and one trapped in the past. A past filled with love, loss, and a woman he never truly said goodbye to. And then there was the hardest truth of all. Emily had not stayed frozen in time the way he had. While Ian carried her memory like something sacred, her life had continued. She had found a way to move forward, to rebuild, to live again in a world where he was no longer by her side. That thought stayed with him more than anything else, not because he didn't want her to be happy, but because it forced him to face something he had been avoiding for so long. He wasn't part of her life anymore, and accepting that was harder than leaving her in the first place. Still, somewhere deep inside him, there was a feeling he couldn't ignore. A quiet pull, like an unfinished story waiting for its final chapter. Ian didn't know if he would ever see Emily again. He didn't know what he would say if he did. But one thing remained certain: some connections don't break, no matter how much time or distance stands between them. And sometimes, life has a way of bringing those unfinished stories back when you least expect it.